Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I'm Sam now.
Oh no, and I'm still Trish, for now.
I have taken over Sam's life. I've assumed his identity. And yeah, I know I'm actually Bernard. Sam is just traveling, so he can't be here today. So instead of playing Paper Mario without him, we are going to be doing something different the next couple weeks. This week, we are playing Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion.
Yep, which was recommended by the lovely Emma Void, if you could look her online, she's cool. But yeah, this was a fun little game, but before we get to it, Bernard, what did you do this last week?
Mainly I went to work and it was really difficult and really sucked. Don't tell anyone. I might have a new job soon.
I won't tell a single person. I bet our
Okay.
audience won't either.
Okay. It's almost certain. I'm hoping it happens, and I'm hoping that it turns out to be a good move.
For me, big thing was, there was an eclipse recently, back on Monday. And so me and my wife's wife, the aforementioned Emma, all went on a road trip to Vermont to get to the Path of Totality. The trip there was pretty smooth. There were a couple bits where it was really busy traffic and whatever. Then we saw the eclipse, which was incredible. My first time ever seeing a total eclipse like that. It was beautiful. It was awe-inspiring. And then we were like, oh, let's eat some food. Like, let's try to find some diner food on the way home. This was a mistake because it took us about 5 to 6 hours to get there, which is more than it should have because of, traffic. It took us 12 hours to get home.
Oh dear.
Because we kept trying places and they would either be closed or they would be so busy that we didn't want to wait an hour to get a table. And in the process, each time the traffic was so bad getting home, every time we wanted to get from place to place on the way, it took us hours to get to another place. And so it took us 12 hours to get home. It was honestly kind of a horrible shared nightmare. It was just so bad. The only good part of it was that having them in the car with me, I was and I'm sad Sam isn't here to relish this with me, but I got to play some Doctor Who audio dramas for them. And it was very fun listening to those, especially because one of them was it was a musical story with parody songs of Gilbert and Sullivan musical numbers, which I don't really get because I've never seen any of the musicals by Gilbert and Sullivan, but my wife has, and so she enjoyed those so much. So aside from the hell of being in the car for 12 hours straight, we didn't even get diner food. We just ended up settling for drive-through. That was my week, basically.
Well, you got to see the eclipse.
I did get to see the eclipse, and that was pretty great. But yeah, that said, are you ready to talk about Turnip Boy who evade taxes?
Yes, let's do that.
All right. This game begins with the main character, Turnip Boy, getting a notice that he owes property taxes on his greenhouse, which the only way to respond to this is to rip it up. However, doing that is tax evasion, and the mayor immediately knows and pulls Turnip Boy into a series of tasks in order to avoid. Does he ever even have a punishment on hand for what for not paying his taxes?
I don't remember him saying
No, it's
what
just
the
you got to do
punishment would
this.
be. Yeah, you
Yeah, you
just
got to do
have to
this.
because that's how taxes work.
That's how taxes work. The first task is to go to Bustling Barn on Layer Lane, which he's been trying. It's under construction to make it into a town hall, and get some. Apparently, it's got a bunch of pigs, which is a problem because all the people, obviously Turnip Boy, Mayor Onion, everyone else follows this. Everyone's fruit and vegetables, so the pigs are a problem. So you got to take out the pigs and get the fertilizer and bring it back to him. But to do that, you need to get a sword. But to get a sword, you need a watering can, and you use the watering can to grow a sword in the nearby woods. Don't ask. This is not a game where you ask how or why. You just do. So you go to the barn, and you do puzzles. There's a lot of block puzzles and bombs and things like that. But the point is, you fight a bunch of pigs, including a king pig, and you get the fertilizer. And you take it to Mayor Onion, and now he tells you to go to an abandoned, haunted farmhouse to get a 4-pronged spear, which is just a fork. Now, to get into the farmhouse, you need a stool. And the only way to get the stool is to find nearby there's a lost carrot child. You have to take the child to the babysitter who was in the woods where you got your sword and trade you for the stool that she was holding over her head for some reason. And you can use the stool to get into the farmhouse, which is full of notes from the human people who used to live there, which together tell a story about a kid being sent into war, and then dying in action, and a letter being sent back to his family. It's just a weird, random, sad note on this haunted ass farmhouse. From there, you go into a freezer area, which is a bunch of the only like safe place in the area, which is full of frozen food, and you have to do a bunch of favors for them in order to get the keys you need to progress further. And then you fight a rotten cat apple with a worm in it and butter on its back. Doing so gets you the spear, quote unquote. And when you hand it over to Mayor Onion, he asks for the next thing, which is radioactive goo.
Yeah.
It's starting to feel like maybe getting all these things is a bad idea and we shouldn't be doing it. But unfortunately, we don't actually have a choice. We have to. So you go to the next area where there's a researcher who you met previously who helps you with this whole little area. And it's just you start to piece together exactly what's been going on, namely that there was nuclear war and it created radioactive goo, which makes inanimate objects come to life and become sapient, which in the process of defeating the boss and getting the radioactive goo, you end up accidentally, some of it gets splashed. It gets on you, and you become kind of radioactive. And just going near some acorns makes them alive, and they just like slowly become people before your eyes. It's really creepy. Anyway, of course, we're not done. The mayor has more tasks for us to repay us for the taxes that we owe, which is to go into a horrifying secret bunker. My notes on this are a little thrown together. Can you please remind me? I don't remember what the item for the fucking bunker was.
To get into the fucking bunker, you have to.
I know you get the shovel. I know that bit, but what's the thing you're going inside the bunker for?
a laser pointer.
Okay, that was it. Yes. For the fourth item, you need to get a laser pointer from a secret bunker, but you can't get into the secret bunker even with the help of the tax people who've been just like basically being obstructions, so you can't go to the next area up to this point in the game. Now they're trying to get into the next area and they can't. So you need to get a shovel. There is a dude who has a shovel, but he won't give it to you. He wants to dig up some stuff from the graveyard. So you help him get through the graveyard, which is full of ghosts. And you end up finding the treasure he's looking for, but it's just a golden shovel. So he gives you the normal shovel, and he takes the golden shovel, which you use to break into the bunker, which is apparently the fallout shelter in which people were hiding from the nuclear war that happened. And as you start going through it, the new mechanic, forgot to mention, the last area's new mechanic was portals. This area's is fire. You set yourself on fire to burn things, and it's just combining more and more of these little puzzle mechanics together. This area, as you get farther and farther in, you find more diary entries, these from a little girl who's still here. You find her. However, shortly after you kind of corner her and run into her, she gets horribly mutated into a terrifying creature who is the hardest boss in the game. Way harder than the final boss. Liz here is a nightmare to fight. I died more times to her than I did in the rest of the game combined, I think.
It's the point of the game where, well, actually the point of the game where it starts getting difficult, I would say, is when you fight the deer for the last time.
Yes, okay, the deer you fight in the radioactive goo area are definitely hard, but this
But
is
Liz
just
is really hard.
yes, it's a weird hard boss fight. Because the main way to hurt her is to set yourself. At this point, you have a thing that makes you can set yourself on fire without hurting yourself. So you have to set yourself on fire to set her on fire. But she has just so many ways of hurting you. It's really hard to do that without getting hurt. And she hits really hard.
Yeah.
You have at this point have a lot of health, and it doesn't really matter. Anyway, you do kill this child who's been horribly mutated into a monster, and then you go get the laser pointer from the room where her cat used to live, and you go and give it to the mayor, and he goes into the greenhouse, and you follow him and discover that there's this whole backstory. Turnip Boy's dad was in the mob, and Mayor Onion was like his right hand man, but betrayed them all and created a government as mayor, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. I think there might be some social commentary there. Anyway, he combines all of the stuff you gave him to become a giant a giant onion god. Well, first he becomes a regular boss, weird cyborg onion man, and then he becomes a giant turnip god. As you float in space by setting off a nuke, and you have to fight him in space.
By throwing bombs at the IRS.
You throw bombs at the IRS, who then the first two valiantly sacrifice themselves to throw themselves at him and kill and hurt him. And then the third doesn't volunteer, but you do it to him anyway, because that's really just kind of the person Turnip Boy is.
Yes.
But yes, you've done this. You destroyed the giant evil onion who killed your father. And the day is saved and you successfully evaded your taxes, because taxes were actually just a thing that this evil onion man made up to control all the fruits and vegetables around him, and that they're not actually real. And that's the game.
Yeah. It's a weird game.
It's a very weird game, but it's a very fun game. And after some music from the game, we'll tell you about our memorable moments. Where do you want to start, Bernard? Because there are things to talk about with this game.
So this game is just full of lots of little details and weird interactions. And like, for instance, you said you get a watering can.
Yes.
What you actually do is you steal the watering can from Old Man Lemon. And if you talk to him later, he's like, "Have you seen my old watering can? I can't find it. It's all I have to remember my wife by," and stuff. And also, basically, there's lots of documents you can find where you pick them up and you just have the option to read it, but you can't like put the document down or take it. All you can do is rip it up.
Yes, that's the only like reading mechanic you have, is to tear up whatever's being held up to the screen right then. And so that leads to like doing quests where it's like, oh, I'm going to give this love letter to this other person. And then you go to do it, and then you just rip it up in front of them.
Yep. And also there's, for instance, a character who has dropped her phone down a hill and down a cliff, and you find her way to the other side, and you pick up the phone, and when you pick up the phone, when you pick up an item, it says, "I found this," and it says the what item it is and gives a little description. And the description when you pick up the phone is, "I changed the password, lol." And so
Yeah.
you give her the phone, and she dropped the phone because her and her friends were doing flip flop dances, and one of the uh, one of the other friends says that Mayor Onion is trying to ban flip flop, so she gives you a petition to try and uh, get him to not ban flip flop,
Which you
and you
rip up.
tear it up. Yes.
I love how the silly little mechanics and details like that really establish, though he is a silent protagonist. Turnip Boy is a fucking nightmare.
Yes.
Like, just the worst.
These these
You
creatures.
kill someone's roommate.
Yep.
Or
These
you can. You don't
like
have to.
they're like not mature. I feel like they're still figuring out the whole being alive and sentient thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're still figuring it out, and there is some like funny commentary with that. Like literally the acorns I mentioned, who you bring to life after you get the goo that brings things to life. You could go like talk to a couple, and they're like going like, "Oh, like I'm sorry, I'm sapient. I'm a living person. Okay." And then one's like, "Okay, I want to own property. Can you get me some property?"
Mm-hmm.
And then you could do a little quest where you go to a real estate agent and get the property,
Yep.
and then you
And
tear it up.
yeah, you get the deed and you bring the deed, or yeah, you bring the deed to the person, and then and the acorn's like, "I don't know how to read. Can you read it to me?" So it comes up to the screen and you rip it up, and the acorn says, "Is that how you read? Nice. Now get off my property."
This is really a like you mentioned the little details. There are little details everywhere. There's so many little side quests, most of which the reward is a hat. Like that's the main reward in this game is getting hats.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sunk hundreds of hours into TF2. I love games where I get hats for doing things or
Yeah.
doing nothing. But the what I like even more, honestly, is just it's a game of a very small scope. This is a game that took us what like between 3 and 5 hours to complete at most.
Yeah, I would say like 2 or 3 hours.
2 or 3 hours, yeah. Very short game, even doing all the extra stuff. Very short game. But within the small scope they took, they just really the visual design and the sound and the writing, it's all polished. They kept the scope small so they could make a fun little indie game that just feels nice and feels
Yeah.
extremely goofy.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, this game sort of reminded me of Boots Quest, when you're going around and just interacting with weird characters and collecting hats and stuff.
Yeah.
Boots Quest does not have uh, actual action mechanics and boss battles and real puzzles, but this game does, and I actually liked the puzzles,
Yeah, the
and
puzzles were good.
some of the bosses were fun to fight. I found like I mentioned before, the deer boss in the when you are getting the goo. I found that fight fun because you have to like set up the portals as he's
Mm-hmm.
running past you in order to have time to kick a bomb into the portal in order to have it go the right direction at the right angle to hit it.
Yeah, I actually kind of avoided the puzzle aspect of that one. I just waited for him to be in an area where I could just kick the bomb normally without portals.
Yeah, the run where I did beat the deer was one where it often landed in one where in spaces where I could kick bombs at it without portals.
Yeah,
But I did try.
he did try, and you know what? That's nice. It's good to try to, unlike me, try to use the game mechanics that the game gave you to do what it wanted to do. I would say, like honestly, like the areas where the game gets kind of hard, and I think the stag fight kind of comes into that as a little bit as well, is the bits where you could get easily not stun locked, but like you don't really have invincibility frames. So if you get hit by an attack that just keeps going and you're in the way, you're gonna take a lot of damage, which can feel a little annoying, especially against the giant god onion when he does a giant laser and it just takes more than half of your health in one go.
However, you do get an interesting item called the Last Slice, which is a
Yes.
slice of pizza. And what it does is it restores 1/4 of a heart of health when you use it, but it takes a significant amount of time to use it. So, but if you're really careful, you can use it during boss fights and get a few more, get where you can take a couple more hits. And
Mm-hmm.
when Mayor Onion or God Onion uses the laser beam attack, if you can get out of the way, you can really go to town on that pizza.
You can indeed do that, and it
Because
is
you
an
can use it
interesting item.
repeatedly as many
Yeah, you
times
can
as
just
you
spam
want.
it. Yeah. I honestly, it was funny. I was looking at for stuff about this game, and I saw something refer to it as like a Zelda, like a Legend of Zelda style game. And my brain, when I saw it, was just like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess yeah, I do have hearts. I swing a sword around. It's a 2D. It is kind of a Zelda. It's one of those cases of just in my brain, the context and the vibes are so far removed. I didn't notice the gameplay similarities at all.
Yeah.
It also just doesn't. As someone who's played a lot of 2D Zelda games, it doesn't feel like Zelda. And actually getting into like why it doesn't really feel like a 2D Zelda is really getting into like ineffable qualities that are impossible to like nail down completely with explainable words. But just the it's an indie game that is using similar mechanics but in a very different way.
Yes.
And as I said before, also just you could definitely read something into all these fruits and vegetables came alive, and then one of them who was in a organized crime group started reading about like government and human organizations and decided to become mayor and use that to hold power over everyone unjustly. And I guess you could read something into that, huh?
Oh, yes. This is a uh very this game has I feel like a very anarchist worldview in a
Definitely.
really cute, cheesy way, which I really enjoy.
Same. It was enjoyable, and it's like I don't disagree with these politics, at least not that strongly. But yeah, no, it is a fun little game. If you have the 2 or 3 hours to sink into it, maybe don't play it all in one sitting like I did. Maybe that wasn't a good thing to do 1 week ago, before we talked about it. But it's a fun little game.
Also, pro tip, because I didn't realize I could do this until I was like over halfway through the game. If you want to get back to the greenhouse, which is sort of like the center of the game world, just save and quit, and then click continue on the title screen. It takes like 4 seconds to do, and
Oh
it
god, that would be so
starts.
because there's so much back and forth backtracking.
Yeah, because when you continue your game, you always start at the greenhouse, and being able to just warp back there in a few seconds is really nice.
Anything else we have to say about this particular game?
It's weird.
It's very
Uh,
weird.
I
There's
mentioned,
also a lot of fun little silly things with like flirty blueberries and in the freezer section there's specifically a character that like apparently is very into Turnip Boy,
yeah,
who's like a nurse.
and there's. Did you get the newspaper, which essentially says that the reason for the nuclear war was they were trying to blow up COVID?
I forgot about it. It's so stupid. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh there is just something like the further you get in the game, you start to realize that you have no choice but to rip up every piece of paper that the game shoves up on the screen. And that this puts you into situations where someone's just handed you something like that is important to them, and you respond by ripping it up in front of their faces. It's just really funny.
Yeah. Like, there's one character who you do them a favor and they're like, "Oh, I found this thing called manga that I've been reading. And so here I drew you," and it shows a drawing of Turnip Boy as an anime girl, and you rip it up.
Oh, Turnip Boy, you are truly the worst.
I can't wait to see what Turnip Boy gets up to next time.
Indeed, because next week we're going to be talking about how Turnip Boy robs a bank. I'm interested to see him do that. Now that he's taken out the government, I'd love for him to take out big corporate institutions. But that'll have to wait until next time. In the meantime, if people want to look up anything about RPG Book Club or know anything about us as a podcast, where do they do that exactly?
Well, if you like what you heard, you can head over to www.rpgbook.club, where all donations help us cover the costs of running the show and making it better. Setting up a recurring monthly donation also confers additional benefits. If you donate $1 or more a month, you get access to our bonus feed, where this week, we recorded this yesterday, and I've already edited it, so hopefully my computer's not going to explode and lose the edited file or something, but we defeated the Kaseki curse. We recorded an episode of Book Club no Kaseki, so that should be coming out on Monday.
I'm doing golf claps for you.
Thank you. And if you do a donation, you can also access our polls to decide the games we play next on the main feed, which our next game is actually already decided. It's going to be Persona 3 Reload after we finish Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. So that'll be fun. But then after Persona 3 Reload, we'll have lots of voting to do.
Indeed, indeed.
If you donate $5 or more a month, we'll also shout out your name on every episode, just like this. Shoutouts to Cerebral Wind, It's Claire Time, Frost Terror, Dragon Slayer 19, Floris, Keldron, Freddy Rodriguez, Aaron524, and Jfro Prime. And finally, if you love us so much, you donate $20 or more a month. You also get to make Sam, or in rare cases, Bernard, say a sentence of your choosing to plug something or just to make us say something. So shout out to L Tantavi, who wants you to check out Aftermath.site, a worker-owned, reader-supported news site covering video games, the internet, and the cultures that surround them. Shout out to Vimke, who has been telling us to play Legend of Legaia and really wants everyone to play Legend of Legaia because Legend of Legaia is cool. So you should play Legend of Legaia. And shout out to Carr, who is a dentist, so he isn't plugging a website, but rather your own mouth. And he says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, the time before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I've been Bernard.
And I'm Trish.
Toodaloo, folks.
Bye.